What's up, and welcome to another episode of Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we're talking about the new Razer Blade 18, which is Razer's latest and most powerful gaming laptop for 2023. Razer is a brand that has strived to provide their users with the most premium user experience possible. Sometimes they fail, but most of the time they're pretty successful. In previous years, this typically comes at the cost of cutting performance in order to make the Blade series laptops thinner and lighter. And this is the primary reason I ended up selling off my Razer Blade Pro and opting instead to buy gaming laptops that feature fully powered GPUs and CPUs, because it's significant gains in performance. I mean, why would you want to spend thousands of dollars and not get a laptop that is the most powerful possible, right? Obviously, there must have been plenty of people that were making those trade-offs before, but I think as consumers have become more and more educated about laptop performance, Razer may have struggled to actually sell laptops when competing against other brands with higher performance machines. In the last couple of years, we've seen Razer increase the performance of their machines, but this year we actually saw Razer do something very interesting, something we haven't seen Razer do in a long time. The new Blade 18 is 10% thicker than the Blade 17 from last year, increasing from 0.78 inches to 0.86 inches. They also increased the overall volume by 18.1% from 124 square inches to 146 square inches. And it's also 28% heavier, going from 5.5 pounds last year to 7.05 pounds. Now, why would Razer do this? Simply put, to increase the vapor chamber cooling effectiveness of the laptop and thereby increase the performance of the laptop to be even higher and better than last year. So what are the specs of the new Blade 18? Well, you can get it with an i9-13950HX or an i9-13980HX, which is just a slight bump in clock speed. Under a dual load, you get 65 watts of power to the CPU, and in a CPU-only load, you get 120 watts of power. And the GPU now goes to 150 watts base power with a 25 watt boost for a total of 175 watts when available. To the best of my knowledge, the Blade 18 is the thinnest full TDP gaming laptop available in 2023. And I think finally Razer has struck the perfect balance between portability and performance, of course assuming that the vapor chamber actually works well and that the cooling is sufficient to keep those temperatures in a reasonable level. Now, the Blade 18 features a vapor chamber cooling and a tri-fan design. I am concerned a little bit about the air intakes not quite being enough to get enough air into the chassis, but I'll have to actually test that when I get the laptop in for review to see how well the air intakes work. Now, one area where the Blade 18 falls behind in a little bit is the raw CPU TDP. For example, the MSI GT77 can pull 152 watts in a CPU-only load, and the SCAR 18 can do 125 watts, which is 5 more than the Blade 18. But even if the Blade 18 isn't the most powerful laptop, I would argue that they clearly have the most premium features of any manufacturer. Of course, you've got the CNC unibody aluminum chassis that's just so firm and rigid. The only downside to a CNC aluminum chassis is that, like, you drop a screwdriver on it, you're going to have like a dent in the aluminum. And of course, a metal chassis also conducts heat, so the whole laptop body eventually becomes like a bit of a heat sink and can warm up a bit. We'll have to see how well Razer's cooling solution can keep the unibody chassis cool as well. I run into the same problem with my Lenovo Legion 7i, but there's no denying that a all-metal chassis has a premiumness to it that you just can't get with plastic chassis. The Blade 18 also features a 5 megapixel webcam with Windows Hello, a QHD 240Hz 500 nits brightness display with 100% DCI-P3 color gamut, an ultra compact 330 watt GAN charger that is smaller and more compact than most other brands' chargers. And then you have the extra large Microsoft Precision glass touchpad, and it's just massive and great for multi-finger gesture controls. Now, there is an anti-fingerprint coating, but I did still notice fingerprints. There's some high-end speakers that flank the keyboard, and though I didn't get to test it, Razer has been known for their spatial audio, and it's always been very impressive. One of my favorite features on the Razer Blade Pro is that I could play first-person shooters and know if there was an enemy around me just using the spatial speakers on the laptop itself without headphones. That's a huge advantage that Razer Blade laptops have that most other gaming laptops don't have. The port selection on the Blade 18 is also impressive. On the right, you've got a full-size SD card slot, USB-C with DisplayPort connected to the integrated GPU for doing presentations on low battery consumption. You got a USB-A 3.2, HDMI 2.1 connected to the NVIDIA graphics card with G-Sync enabled. On the left side, you've got a headset port, Thunderbolt 4 port connected to NVIDIA GPU with G-Sync, 2 more USB-A 3.2s, an Ethernet port, and a power adapter port. Out of all of the high-end laptops, I would say the Blade 18 has my favorite port selection. My biggest complaint about the whole laptop is simply the keyboard. It's too small and lacks key features that every other 18-inch laptop has. The Blade 18 doesn't have a number pad. It doesn't have full-size arrow keys, and it doesn't have dedicated home and page up, page down buttons. Sure, the per key RGB lighting looks good, and the keyboard is excellent to type on, but it just lacks key features users have come to expect in a laptop this large. Perhaps for many of you, the other premium features the Blade 18 still make it a worthwhile purchase, and I can totally understand that. But before I can wholeheartedly recommend the Blade 18, I've got to actually thermally test it and see how well the new improved vapor chamber cooling works to keep those CPU and GPU temperatures down while having these ultra-high TDPs in such a thin chassis. If the vapor chamber does its job well, the Blade 18 should be an excellent laptop this year if you can get past the small keyboard. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a like, and if you want to see more of my content in the future, be sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell. I'll see you in the next one. Brandon, out.